Welcome back to part 2. So we're talking about the Republic now. So there are many different mythological foundations of the same city, but the key is that it's all rural, right? It's all from the land. Everybody who has descendants, has ancestry in Rome, always talks about land holding and farming and stuff because that's where they came from and everything is fine. But, okay, before the Romans are the Etruscans. And the Etruscans, the descendants are Roman. So they are rural people. They are the guys that build tombs in the Iron Age and etc. etc. Big gladiatorial displays. The Romans copied the Etruscan gladiatorial display and had a whole bunch of tombs and stuff erected, kind of copying the display. But the Etruscan tombs had like intricate paintings of gladiatorial combat. But anyway, this idealism comes from a guy into the 1st century AD or whatever that is called Virgil, and he writes about all this stuff in poetry. The first Roman poet that is most popular and stuff. He kind of romanticizes all this stuff. So, what is the difference between a Roman and an Italian? Basically, the Italians are a tribe separate from the Romans, outside of the Romans. They're not barbarians. They're not considered because barbarians are completely outside the boundaries of Rome completely.
Kind of like Germanic tribes were the barbarians of that era.
Etc. It's Greek and it means basically to buy like a sheep.
Cool.
So basically they are separate and they false out. But anyway, one thing I should say is the Italian state is founded in 1871, right? So you have Italian tribes and then you have the state itself. So there are 35 individual tribes in the Roman land at this point. They're all legally separate, etc., etc.
So at this time, we've got all these lands that the Romans are expanding into, and are these the different areas that they're wanting to represent with the Senate?
Yes. The 35 tribes that are members of the Senate, they become, they're representatives of the Senate. So that is the key. Roman Senate was meant to be a just representation of people, of Roman citizens, as it would be in Greece in the idealized republic. And then the republic is formed by a guy who is the uncle of the Brutus that kills Caesar, right? And he forms a republic because he doesn't want a king to rule over the entire Roman landscape, or the realm or whatever. So he goes, I will form this republic and the republic will stand for ages, hopefully. And it does stand until the reign of Augustus at the end of the 1st century. So it's like heaps of time. As everybody knows, Roman law and US law are interlinked, right? They took elements of Roman law into their constitution and the way they deal with enemies and things like that. It's a very kind of Romanesque way of looking at things. And the difference between the Roman Senate, the US Senate and the Windsor Senate is we have two houses, and the US has a House of Congress, which is basically the equivalent of the Roman Senate, right? And the House of Congress dominates 90% of the bills passed. So what happens is that the Roman law is established by a collection of law codes called the 12 Tables, and they're put in a temple, inscribed in bronze. And in the 12 Tables, they kind of set out the values of being a Roman, strength, honor, manliness, which is key here, because they were all rustic people. They're not originally civilians.
Well, and Rome was also very concerned with like conquest and building an empire as well. So I guess the values that go with an expansionist kind of
the
nation.
The need to expand is part of the point, because in the centuries in the early Republic, you had Macedonian expansion. Interestingly, there's also a phalanx versus maniple battle between the Macedonians and the Romans, and they beat the phalanx back, right? So it's the classic story of who will win in a fight, the maniple, because it's movable. But anyway, you have Macedonian expansion, you had Celtic expansion. Okay, so who were the Celts? The Celts are basically a group of people that come out in about the 106s, 102 to 106, and they come down into the Roman held lands, and they take on the Romans. They're defeated at a river crossing, and when I talk about Celts, these are the descendants of Scots and stuff.
Yeah.
That have come out of kind of the basically Spain, which is interesting. Or
right.
Kind of
I have no
European
idea.
region. They weren't Spanish. They were just Celtic tribes that come down, and they basically get defeated. But let's talk about the Roman military organization for a minute. So the Roman military is divided into blocks, right? Individual blocks, it's called a maniple. And they're all commanded by two guys, one at the front and one at the back, right? So your optio is at the back of your line of infantry, or whatever, and your centurion is basically at the front. And the reason why there's no big block of infantry like there would be later is that there's maneuverability, right? You could move 50 men around in maniple much easier than you could a big block of infantry. So we had blocks or whatever, and then the blocks kind of get moved into a cohesive unit structure called the Roman Legion, still led by centurions, and they basically can fight their own independent campaigns. And basically the military reforms come about because of the first dictator, whose name is Sulla. So Sulla is dictator when Julius Caesar is very young, right? And he rules Rome for the first time. But how he rules Rome is through basically locking the Senate into 100 men. But 100 men that he picks himself. So,
Yeah, very democratic
first-
process.
well, there's no democracy in the Republic. There's no true democracy in the United States either. So
Real.
that's why, because there's a Roman system. It's basically because he controlled the majority of the Senate. The idea is that you elect two people, two consuls every year. And you also elect a councillor called an aedile who would fix your fountains, fix your toilets, fix the roads, etc.
Yeah, very local council energy.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are essentially local council. So that's why they think that Romans are democratic, because they have these two consuls that are elected by a group of their peers, etc. Right? So he is a big issue. And the other issue is the Italians in the 90s BC want citizenship. Because to get citizenship in Rome is if you're a landholder in Rome and you're not directly connected to the city, it's harder to get it,
Yeah.
right? So they basically say that you can, but you have to be Romanized. And the Italians fight back. The Italianate peoples are already basically there, speaking other different languages rather than Latin.
Right.
And the key distinction here, right, how many people spoke Latin in Rome? The answer is educated people.
Yeah.
So there is common parlance Latin, but there's also Greek, and Greek is the predominant language being spoken.
Yeah, right.
Right? So to return to why you have Italians kind of wanting independence, they wanting citizenship, which is hard to get. So the Romans go out, they suppress that kind of revolt, and they bring some of them in and give them citizenship in the city. There's a bunch of wars with Sulla, and he is ousted in the end because he had committed the first prescribed killings of citizenry.
Yeah, that'll get you ousted.
Basically, because he had too much power. So what I should say is that he and Marius, the kind of founder general of the Roman army and the person that founds everything, have these battles, and they're basically in the marshes and whatever. And you read accounts from Plutarch and things, and Marius chases Sulla into this marsh, and then he hides, whatever. But we're going to get to another key event, which is the valid system, okay?
Yeah.
So the valid system comes in under a guy called Cicero, and Cicero is a conniving bugger. He is your corrupt politician that everybody doesn't like, and that doesn't get along with anybody, but in public he's fine. Blah, 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 all this sort of thing. And he writes a whole bunch of letters to oust everybody, to put everybody out of sorts. And the reason is he wants to be in the highest tax bracket. Because in Rome, there are high taxed, basically they're knights, right? Equites. And they are the highest taxed brackets. So during an Eastern War, with a guy called Mithridates, who is a interesting guy because he works with poisons and all this sort of thing. He is kind of like, if this war goes badly, I lose all my money. So one of the things that Cicero does is basically, I'm going to introduce the secret ballot, but you have to show me all your votes, right?
What could
So
possibly
he kind
go
of
wrong?
rigs the ballot in his own favour,
What?
right?
No.
He's that's conniving. And so he basically is profiting from the war with Mithridates, and he has the political aptitude
Yeah.
to rig elections. And the other thing to note is that there's no prison in Rome in the Republic until he starts trying people for, I don't know, tax evasion or that sort of thing. It's more complicated than tax evasion, but I'm trying to make it
But yeah, just
simple.
trying them for all sorts. And this is
Trying
Cicero.
it for all sorts. Cicero, he is a justice onto himself. So he knows the Roman law, and very few people, apart from the senators, do. People in the priests and stuff, but he starts trying people for all kinds of trumped-up reasons.
So basically, Cicero was using the power of the law to punish people who are in opposition to the Republic. So what's an example of this?
An example of this is there's a war in Spain in the 130s BC, and after the war in Spain, people have left the land. The land is barren. And the Roman ideal of being a land-holding nation is not being upheld anymore. There are two guys called the Gracchi, and the Gracchi brothers, Gaius and Tiberius, not related to later people, they try and basically reclaim the land from the the government, because they're the only plebs in this period to kind of uproot and go, wait, we need land for us rather than the soldiers, because veteran settlement in Rome is massive, right? If you win a war, you have a large parcel of land allotted to you, and this will go on ad infinitum forever, 7 centuries, whatever. And so they try and get the land back, and they get brutally killed because people are like, "Oi, why are you speaking out against the Senate? Are you conspirators? Blah blah, blah, all this sort of thing." And they go, "Well, no, we're actually expressing rational views," and they go, "Right, but you're still conspirators." But anyway, the main charge is against a secret cell still loyal to Sulla, called the Catalan conspirators. Basically, he says, you know what you have done, you know the laws that you have broken. If you are to continue this, I shall have to bring the law down upon you with all its little force. We shall deal with you like we dealt with the Graki. So he says that, and it goes on for quite a while. They root out the secret cell of pro-Sultan conspirators and bring them to battle, and they kill basically all of them. So after this point in 63 BC, the conspiracy is dead and all opposition to the Republic is also quashed. But there is also one final trial of the Republic's resolve, and that is the Punic Wars. And biggest resource in Rome is grain. Okay, so Rome fights Carthage over this, and Carthage is the biggest power in the region, and so Hannibal, the son of the first guy called Hamilcar, he outsmarts the Romans by, setting cows on fire and tricking them into thinking he's got a whole army when he's got all this other stuff, and also elephants and a whole bunch of other interesting tactics. But the other key that the Carthaginians have over the Romans, they have a navy, right? They have one of the biggest harbours in the world, and one of the biggest navies in the world. And one of the myths that brings up is one of the reasons also they've got voting platforms in the shape of galleys, is because you stand up at the prow of a ship and you speak to the people and you go, I am the best person to lead you, Romans, against this enemy, because the ship is impressive. So the way they counter that is by ramming and sinking and using rope, counter-levered bridges to turn a ship into a land, into a field, because there's only a few units that are able to fight at sea. There's a lot of drowning in ancient naval warfare, because basically the idea is to poke a hole in big ship sinks. So it's not as complicated. Okay, and the other thing is no slaves. Well, there's some slaves that do the galley thing, but it's not as prevalent as the Turkish galleys in the 15th century. They were actually crewed by slaves. These are paid members of a Roman navy, right? So Hannibal is then defeated on land in Africa and then is driven back. So overall, it is a tumultuous time in the Republic. There's a succession of senators leading up to Julius Caesar. And Caesar, as we all know, Caesar basically is wanting to stabilize. And that is the conclusion to part 2. And the state of things, part 3, is everybody's favourite. We'll be talking about Julius Caesar. So Vale for right now, and then we shall return with more fun in the Republic, or not fun, depending on your perspective.